email on the two of them getting in this vehicle and taking off.
So I don't want to try and defend myself by saying anything here, but I pushed her away. She gets really worked up, and when she does, she swings, and she had her cell phone in her hand, so I was just trying to push her away. But
sort of squabbling over a phone. I want to say that he was trying to grab her phone, and I'm not sure exactly why. And then it seems like he had sort of blocked the one side of the van and sort of wasn't letting her in. And
you haven't admitted to striking her. She has not admitted to you striking her. The witness did not see you strike her. So at this point, you're the victim of a domestic assault. Even if I don't want to take this small 20. What is she?
Yeah, 22.
What if I told you that behind the perfectly curated Instagram posts of van life adventures and sunset kisses, a young woman was desperately trying to signal for help? What if I told you that the case that captivated an entire nation began not with a disappearance, but with a single phone call from a concerned witness who noticed something wasn't right? What if I told you that in the span of just 23 days, a love story would transform into one of the most haunting mysteries of our time? Before we dive deep into this heartbreaking journey, if you're fascinated by cases that reveal the darker side of human nature, cases where the truth lies hidden beneath layers of deception and carefully constructed facades, then you've found your home here at Dark Trail Files. We don't just tell stories, we uncover the truth that others miss. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what you're about to discover about the Gabby Petito case will challenge everything you thought you knew. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. The year 2021 began like any other for Gabrielle Venora Petito. At 22 years old, she possessed that infectious energy that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her blonde hair caught the sunlight perfectly in every photograph, and her smile could light up the darkest room. But behind that radiant exterior lived a young woman searching for something more than the ordinary life that Long Island, New York had to offer. Enter Brian Christopher Laundrie, 2 years her senior, with his carefully groomed beard and mysterious demeanor that seemed to promise adventure. They had known each other since high school, their relationship blooming from teenage romance into something that appeared destined for forever. By July 2021, they were living together in Brian's family home in Northport, Florida, planning what they believed would be the adventure that would define their lives. The plan was intoxicating in its simplicity. They would convert a white 2012 Ford Transit van into their mobile home, travel across America's most breathtaking landscapes, and document their journey for the world to see. Gabby's Instagram account, Nomadic Fanatic, would chronicle their van life adventure, inspiring others to break free from society's constraints and chase their dreams on the open road. But here's what makes this case so chilling. Social media became both Gabby's voice and her prison. Every carefully curated post told the story they wanted the world to believe, while the reality, growing darker with each passing mile, remained hidden from view. On July 2nd, 2021, Gabby and Brian embarked on their cross-country journey. Their white van, which Gabby had named Van Life, became their universe. The initial posts showed them smiling at the Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado, exploring the natural wonders of Utah, and living what appeared to be an Instagram-perfect life. Yet beneath the surface, something sinister was already taking root. As you watch this footage that Gabby and Brian created during their travels, notice the subtle dynamics between them. Sometimes the most important details are hiding in plain sight.
I think our plan for today is to just hang out here in the tent. Brian's stretching, doing some morning yoga. That's cool.
Very well.
Alright. So I'm gonna make some yogurt.
So, we are right outside Capitol Reef right now in a free dispersed camp spot, and we've been lucky so far at all the places we've stayed, but I'd say this is one of the best so far. Since we left New York, I've only set up my hammock once, and now we're all the way in Utah, and luckily enough I was able to set up my hammock in one of these trees.
And we're kind of like in the desert.
Very few trees.
The first red flag appeared on August 12th, 2021 in Moab, Utah. A 911 call would change everything, though nobody realized at the time. A concerned witness reported seeing a man aggressively grabbing and hitting a woman near their white van outside the Moonflower Community Cooperative. The caller described the scene as disturbing enough to warrant police intervention. When officers Christopher Robbins and Eric Pratt arrived on the scene, they encountered what appeared to be a routine domestic dispute. But this was far from routine. Watch Gabby's body language carefully in this footage. Notice how she immediately takes responsibility for the conflict, how she minimizes Brian's actions, and how her tears tell a story her words refuse to speak.
Or just like, you're an idiot. Like, you know.
But did you grab the steering wheel and like swerve or anything like that?
No. I didn't touch the steering wheel at all.
I'm gonna go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find some.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
You wouldn't happen to have any water, would you?
Oh, yeah.
Can I get a bottle?
Did you already give a statement to this officer?
I've not. This gentleman here. Yeah.
This gentleman noticed that you had some marks on your Yeah. And she's got some marks on her too. We're just trying to figure out what all happened. And I know you probably already told your story. This officer's probably going to be the one handling the whole case. Do you want to listen to what he has to say? And then you tell him what happened.
So,
If you don't mind.
start at the beginning for me, over.
Start at the beginning. Well, I don't want to go too far back, but we've been in Beyond Land for the past like week or so, traveling around, and the flies here are like pretty intense. So the flies have definitely been getting to her, and then my feet are dirty and everything. So I think that our little squabble started because we were hanging out at the coffee shop, and when we got back to the van, there was some dirt and stuff in the van, and I moved our food around. It was a little disorganized, so she gets a little.
Sorry about that. Do you need any water?
That's okay.
It's hot out here.
I was telling we were going to get water because we ran out, but it's okay. No, it's alright. I don't like plastic bottles. It's okay. Thank you, though. But we just had a little disagreement there. Disagreement was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, no, it's okay. Thank you so much.
It's not his fault. That's good.
So it was just more of a disagreement, and I just wanted to say.
What was the disagreement about?
It was, I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like I got dirty feet, I got sand on my flip-flops and stuff like that. It was that we were at the coffee shop for so long because we were there from 9 to 3. So I guess there's a few little things, just little relationships. I don't know if you have a relationship, but I'm sure you know.
I've been married for over 5 years now. So.
There's a lot of little things. And
I get it.
We weren't physical before the point where I said, all right, let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute. I'll lock the van up and I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk that way in the block. You know, because they have what is it called, Moonflower?
Right. Yeah.
You know, nice areas. You can go either way. It's all shaded. So let's just go for a little walk and breather, come back. Because we're never happy with it. I'm not upset with her. She got a little worked up, and she had her phone in her hand and her keys and everything. And she wanted.
Gabby sat in the police car, tears streaming down her face, her voice shaking as she tried to explain the situation. She claimed she had been the aggressor, that she had hit Brian first because he told her to calm down. She spoke of her struggles with obsessive-compulsive disorder, her anxiety about their blog not being perfect, the pressure she felt to make their van life dream successful. But here's what's haunting about this encounter. Gabby was displaying classic signs of someone in an abusive relationship. She immediately blamed herself, minimized the incident, and made excuses for Brian's behavior. The officers, following protocol, classified the situation as a mental health crisis rather than domestic violence. Now observe Brian's demeanor. Notice how calm and collected he appears, how easily he controls the narrative, and how he presents himself as the victim in this situation.
Still shaking now. The adrenaline's the lights flashing up and then her grip and the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah, I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike, but it's good. I'm really sorry about that.
of course. Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. My apologies.
You don't have anything in that pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope. Just the wallet.
All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check your waistband?
I got
Turn around for me real quick. I just want to make sure. That's all, man. Go ahead, do me a favor, take a seat. All right. Oh, do you have your ID on you?
in the car if you want to come with me.
No, we'll just do this. Go ahead, take a seat.
You come with me. I'll give you a seat.
No, you're fine. What's your first name?
Brian.
Brian? Is that layman spelling?
B-R-I-N. Yeah, and L-A-U-N.
And then your last name?
L-A-U-N.
L-A-U-N.
D-R-I-E.
D-R-I-E?
Yep.
Laundry? Okay. What's your date of birth, Brian?
I'll say crisscross applesauce. Can I just sit in the shade because I'm bald?
I'll give you some shit.
Sound good?
Alright, just hang tight for me. SO229. I need a 29 name and date of birth. First name Brian, layman spellings. Last name Laundry. Lima Alpha Uniform. November Delta Romeo India.
To be honest, I don't think.
Where'd you hit him? Slapped him first? It's on his face? How many times did you slap?
Bravo Romeo India Alpha November.
And then what? His reaction was to do what?
It's gonna be out of Florida.
He just grabbed you? Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying he hit him. I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you. Because, you know, where did he hit you?
Brian painted a different picture. He appeared calm, almost dismissive of the severity of the situation. He claimed Gabby had been in a bad mood all morning, that she hit him, and that he was simply trying to de-escalate the situation. He showed the officer scratches on his arm, positioning himself as the victim of domestic violence. The officers made a decision that would haunt this case forever. Instead of arresting either party, they decided to separate the couple for the night. Gabby would stay in the van, while Brian would check into a hotel. They viewed this as a cooling-off period that would resolve the underlying tension. What they couldn't have known was that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end. This additional footage reveals even more about Brian's psychological state and his ability to manipulate situations to his advantage.
One of the things that the state legislature doesn't give us discretion on is charges when it comes to domestic assault. And it sounds like you guys are living together, so you meet the statutes for domestic partners. And you do have injury, and both an independent witness, probably the next one we're going to talk to as well, which we haven't talked to yet, but the one we did talk to, and your own companion have made it clear that she was the primary aggressor and that she was striking you and you just received injuries. You have admitted to striking her. She has not admitted to you striking her. The witness did not see you strike her. So at this point, you're the victim of a domestic assault. And even if you didn't want to pursue this, we don't have a choice. The best thing we can do to not, the law says we have to charge her. It doesn't say we have to put her in jail. Okay? But it also says we have to separate, get a no contact order, and we have to put her in jail if we cannot separate. And there's a little problem here. You guys are out of Florida living in the van together. How are we supposed to separate her guys? Now, I don't want to take this small 20, what is she?
He's a 22-year-old.
22-year-old
blonde hair, blue-eyed, Bill.
You can definitely defend yourself against, but at the same time, you can't say because you're a male and she's a female, you can't treat this different than if you were the male hitting her. You got treated the same.
Yeah, no.
So she's kind of in a tough spot. So unless you have an idea about how she could not go to jail and be separated, you have friends in town, somewhere she could stay. Tomorrow, if you want to, it's up to you. You
Can I go to jail?
You can't because we don't have a charge for you. Now tomorrow, if you wanted to, you can get with her again tomorrow.
I'm going to take your radio.
If you want to be with her again tomorrow, because it's after 5, so our office is closed, so you can go to the police department and fill out a waiver and drop the no contact order so you guys can still be together. But she's going to have a court date online in a week or two. She's going to have to show them a report date online and answer, the prosecutor might drop it. They might say, for example, if you're not willing to pursue it, that's your decision.
I was going to say, it definitely is. I'm not going to pursue anything. But I cannot say I love her. It's just the most awful. I'm sorry that I had to get so public. So I just want to get like the checklist of things I got to do to get rid of this. So
You want her back? Well, she'll get a paper with a court date.
How do I get rid of it?
Well, the court date has to be attended in order for them to decide whether they need to continue or drop it. First, it's just an initial appearance. They say, are you who we think you are? Yes. Do you understand the charges been brought against you? Yes or no? Yes or no, the answer. Do you have an attorney? Yes or no, do you need one? And then...
The days following the Moab incident passed in what appeared to be relative calm. Gabby's Instagram post continued, showing the couple at Arches National Park, their smiles seemingly genuine, their love story intact for public consumption. But for those who knew how to read between the lines, the cracks were becoming impossible to ignore. August 25th, 2021, marked the last confirmed sighting of Gabby Petito alive. A travel blogger named Jen and Kyle Bethune would later provide crucial evidence that placed Gabby and Brian's van at the Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area in Wyoming's Bridger Teton National Forest. Their dashcam footage would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the entire investigation. This footage represents the last confirmed sighting of Gabby alive. As you watch, remember that somewhere in this seemingly peaceful landscape, a tragedy was already unfolding. But here's where the timeline becomes crucial, and where Brian's story would later fall apart under scrutiny. On August 27th, Gabby's mother, Nicole Schmidt, received a text message from her daughter's phone that read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." The message was suspicious for one critical reason. Gabby never called her grandfather Stan by his first name. She always called him Grandpa. This text message would later be identified as potentially the last communication from Gabby's phone, though investigators believe it wasn't sent by Gabby herself. August 30th brought another suspicious text. No service in Yosemite. But here's the problem. Gabby and Brian were supposed to be in Wyoming, not California. The message made no geographical sense, and it would be the final text Nicole Schmidt would receive from her daughter's phone. Meanwhile, Brian was already executing what investigators would later describe as a calculated plan of deception. This footage shows the white Ford Transit van in what would be its final journey with both Gabby and Brian. Soon, only one of them would complete the trip home.
What? Hurry up, hurry up! Shut that thing.
On August 29th, Brian appeared at Calter Bay Village in Wyoming, approaching multiple people asking for rides. He specifically requested transportation to Jackson, Wyoming, claiming his girlfriend was back at their van working on their social media blog. He offered to pay $200 for the ride, an unusually high amount that suggested urgency. Here's what makes this encounter so significant. Brian was creating an alibi, placing himself away from the van during crucial time periods. When Norma and George Volpe gave him a ride, Brian became agitated when they mentioned heading toward Jackson Dam instead of downtown Jackson. He suddenly demanded to be let out of the vehicle, claiming he would hitchhike the rest of the way. This behavior wasn't random. It was calculated, deliberate, and designed to create confusion about his whereabouts during the critical time frame. September 1st, 2021, marked the beginning of one of the most bizarre aspects of this entire case. Brian Christopher Laundrie returned to his family's home in Northport, Florida, alone. He arrived in Gabby's white van, the same van that had carried their dreams across America, but Gabby was nowhere to be seen. For 10 days, Brian said nothing. He didn't report Gabby missing. He didn't contact her family. He didn't post on social media. He simply went about his daily routine as if nothing had happened, while Gabby's family desperately tried to reach their daughter. But here's what nobody knew at the time. While Brian was maintaining his silence and his family was protecting him, Gabby's body was lying in the wilderness of Wyoming, and the clock was ticking on one of the largest search efforts in recent American history. What Brian did during those 10 days of silence would shock investigators and reveal the true depth of his deception. Nicole Schmidt's mother's intuition told her something was catastrophically wrong. When her attempts to contact Gabby became increasingly desperate and Brian's family refused to cooperate, she made the decision that would launch a nationwide search effort. On September 11th, 2021, exactly 10 days after Brian's return to Florida, Gabby Petito was officially reported missing. The Suffolk County Police Department in New York took the initial report, but the investigation quickly expanded to involve multiple agencies across state lines. The FBI, the Northport Police Department, and the Grand Teton National Park Service all joined what would become one of the most publicized missing person cases in American history. Social media exploded with hashtag #FindGabbyPetito hashtags. TikTok users began analyzing her Instagram posts frame by frame, looking for clues about her location and state of mind. Amateur internet detectives pored over Brian's social media accounts, dissecting every photo and comment for potential evidence. The public's fascination with the case was unprecedented. Here was a young, photogenic couple living what appeared to be everyone's dream life, and suddenly that dream had transformed into a nightmare. The contrast between Gabby's social media presence and her sudden disappearance created a mystery that captured the nation's imagination. Meanwhile, Brian Laundrie's behavior became increasingly suspicious to investigators. On September 13th, police arrived at the Laundrie family home to execute a search warrant for the white van. What they found inside would provide crucial evidence, but Brian was already implementing the next phase of what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated plan. The van contained Gabby's personal belongings, including items that suggested she had not voluntarily left the vehicle. There were signs of recent cleaning and organization that seemed inconsistent with the couple's typically casual approach to van life organization. On September 14th, Brian's parents called police to report that their son had left for a hike in the Carlton Reserve on September 13th and had not returned. They claimed he had taken his backpack and told them he was going for a hike in the 25,000-acre nature preserve. But here's what makes this timeline suspicious. Brian's parents waited an entire day before reporting him missing, and their story about when he left and where he went would change multiple times during the investigation. What nobody realized at the time was that while hundreds of searchers were combing through the Carlton Reserve looking for Brian, and while volunteers were searching the wilderness of Wyoming for Gabby, both cases were about to take dramatic turns that would shock the nation and reveal the true extent of this tragedy. September 19th, 2021, became a date forever etched in the hearts of Gabby's family and millions of Americans following her story. FBI agents and park rangers searching the Spread Creek dispersed camping area in Wyoming's Bridger Teton National Forest made the discovery that everyone had feared but hoped they would never have to confront. Gabby's body was found in a remote area, approximately 900 feet from where the white van had been spotted in the dashcam footage from the travel bloggers. She was discovered near a makeshift campsite, surrounded by the natural beauty that she had traveled so far to experience. The Teton County coroner ruled her death a homicide, confirming what investigators had increasingly suspected. The preliminary autopsy findings indicated that she had died from strangulation, and her estimated date of death was determined to be between August 27th and August 30th. This timeline was crucial because it meant that Gabby had likely been deceased for several days before Brian began his hitchhiking encounters near Grand Teton National Park. It also meant that every action Brian took after August 30th was taken with the knowledge that Gabby was dead. The news of Gabby's discovery sent shockwaves across the nation. Vigils were held in her hometown of Blue Point, New York. Her family established the Gabby Petito Foundation, dedicated to supporting search and rescue efforts for missing persons and providing resources for domestic violence victims. But the discovery of Gabby's body only intensified the search for Brian Laundrie, who had now become the primary person of interest in her homicide. On September 22nd, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Brian Laundrie, not for Gabby's murder, but for the unauthorized use of her debit card. Between August 30th and September 1st, Brian had used Gabby's Capital One bank debit card to make unauthorized withdrawals and purchases totaling more than $1,000. This financial evidence painted a picture of Brian's mindset during his cross-country drive back to Florida. He was using his deceased girlfriend's money to fund his escape, purchasing gas and supplies for his journey home while her family desperately searched for answers about her whereabouts. The search for Brian intensified dramatically. The Carlton Reserve became the focal point of a massive search effort involving FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, local police, K-9 units, and specialized search teams. Helicopters circled overhead while ground teams navigated through the challenging terrain of the swampy wilderness preserve. Dog the Bounty Hunter arrived in Florida, joining the search and bringing additional media attention to the case. The story dominated news cycles, with updates broadcasted hourly as the search continued day after day without success. Brian's parents, Chris and Roberta Laundrie, maintained their silence despite increasing pressure from law enforcement and the media. They hired attorney Stephen Bertolino, who advised them not to cooperate with investigators, a decision that would generate significant public criticism and conspiracy theories about their potential involvement in helping Brian evade capture. October 20th, 2021 marked the end of the most intensive manhunt in recent American history, but not in the way anyone had expected. FBI agents and local law enforcement officials converging on the Carlton Reserve made a discovery that would provide answers to some questions while raising entirely new ones. Human remains were found in an area of the preserve that had previously been underwater due to flooding. Alongside the remains were personal items belonging to Brian Laundrie, including a backpack and a notebook that would prove to be crucial evidence. The medical examiner confirmed through dental records that the remains belonged to Brian Christopher Laundrie. The cause of death was determined to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A revolver was found near the remains, but it was the contents of the waterlogged notebook that would provide the confession the world had been waiting for. The notebook contained Brian's handwritten account of Gabby's death, and his words would finally provide insight into what happened during those final days in Wyoming. In his own handwriting, Brian wrote, "I ended her life. I thought it was merciful that it is what she wanted, but I see now all the mistakes I made. I panicked. I was in shock." The confession continued with Brian's claim that Gabby had suffered an injury during a fall and was in severe pain. He wrote that he believed she had suffered a head injury and was experiencing what he described as excruciating pain. In his account, he claimed that ending her life was an act of mercy. However, this account was immediately contradicted by the autopsy findings. The forensic evidence showed that Gabby had died from manual strangulation, not from injuries sustained in a fall. The medical examiner found no evidence of the traumatic head injury that Brian described in his confession. The FBI concluded that Brian's notebook confession was an attempt to justify his actions and potentially minimize legal consequences, even in death. The forensic evidence painted a different picture entirely, one of an intimate partner homicide, not a mercy killing as Brian had claimed. The notebook also revealed Brian's mental state during his final weeks. He wrote about his regret and his realization that his actions had destroyed multiple families. He acknowledged that his choice to end his own life was cowardly, but claimed he could not face the consequences of what he had done. But the discovery of Brian's confession raised new questions that continue to haunt investigators and the public to this day. Was his account of Gabby's final moments truthful, or was it one final manipulation designed to rewrite history? And what about the days between Gabby's death and Brian's return to Florida? What really happened during that time? The investigation into Gabby Petito's death continued even after Brian Laundrie's remains were discovered. FBI agents worked methodically to piece together the complete timeline and to understand the true dynamics of the relationship that had appeared so perfect on social media. Digital forensics experts analyzed both Gabby's and Brian's devices, uncovering a pattern of controlling behavior that had escalated in the weeks leading up to her death. Text messages revealed arguments about the direction of their relationship, Brian's jealousy regarding Gabby's social media success, and his increasing attempt to control her interactions with others. The investigation revealed that Brian had exhibited classic signs of intimate partner abuse throughout their relationship. Friends and family members came forward with accounts of his possessive behavior, his attempts to isolate Gabby from her support network, and his pattern of emotional manipulation. The Moab police encounter took on new significance in light of this information. Domestic violence experts analyzed the body camera footage and identified multiple red flags that had been missed during the initial response. Gabby's immediate acceptance of blame, her emotional state, and her minimization of Brian's behavior were all consistent with victims of ongoing abuse. The case sparked important conversations about domestic violence recognition and response. The National Domestic Violence Hotline reported a significant increase in calls following the publicity surrounding Gabby's case, suggesting that her story had encouraged other victims to seek help. Law enforcement agencies across the country began reviewing their domestic violence response protocols, using the Moab encounter as a training example of warning signs that officers should recognize. The legal aftermath of the case continued for months. In November 2021, Gabby's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Brian's estate and his parents, alleging that they knew about Gabby's death and assisted Brian in evading law enforcement. The lawsuit claimed that Brian's parents had knowledge of Gabby's death as early as August 28, 2021, and that they actively participated in helping Brian avoid capture. Phone records and witness statements suggested that the Laundrie family had changed their typical patterns of behavior in the days following Brian's return to Florida. In February 2022, the wrongful death lawsuit was settled for $3 million, with the Laundrie family agreeing to pay damages to Gabby's parents. However, the settlement did not include any admission of wrongdoing by Brian's parents. A separate lawsuit between Gabby's parents and the Laundrie family regarding their public statements during the search was settled in February 2024 through mediation, with terms that were not disclosed to the public. The case also resulted in legislative changes. Several states proposed or passed laws requiring enhanced training for law enforcement officers responding to domestic violence calls, often referred to as Gabby's law proposals. But even with Brian's confession and the legal settlements, questions remain about this case that may never be fully answered. The true extent of what Brian's family knew and when they knew it continues to generate speculation and investigation. The Gabby Petito case became more than just a tragic story of domestic violence and homicide. It evolved into a cultural phenomenon that highlighted the power of social media, both to deceive and to mobilize public action. The case demonstrated how carefully curated social media presentations could mask serious underlying problems. Gabby and Brian's Instagram posts had portrayed a loving couple living an enviable lifestyle, but the reality was far different. Their story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of assuming that social media presentations reflect actual reality. The massive public interest in the case also raised important questions about media coverage and resource allocation in missing person cases. Critics pointed out that missing white women often receive disproportionate media attention compared to missing persons of color, a phenomenon known as missing white woman syndrome. However, the case also demonstrated the positive potential of social media and public engagement in solving crimes. TikTok users and amateur internet detectives provided crucial tips and analysis that assisted law enforcement. The travel bloggers whose dashcam footage helped locate Gabby's body were motivated to review their footage specifically because of the social media campaign. The Gabby Petito Foundation, established by her parents, has continued working to support search and rescue efforts and domestic violence prevention programs. The foundation has provided resources for families of missing persons and has advocated for improved law enforcement training. The case has been featured in multiple documentaries, podcasts, and true crime series, each attempting to provide new insights into the tragedy. However, Gabby's family has been selective about their participation in media projects, choosing to support those that focus on prevention and awareness rather than sensationalism. Recent developments in 2024 include ongoing discussions about the release of additional evidence from the FBI investigation. Some materials remain sealed as part of ongoing legal proceedings, while others have been released through Freedom of Information Act requests. The Carlton Reserve, where Brian's remains were found, has become an unexpected destination for true crime enthusiasts, though authorities discourage unauthorized visits to the area where the discovery was made. As we reach the end of this investigation, it's important to remember that behind all the media coverage, legal proceedings, and public fascination, this case represents the tragic loss of a young woman whose life was cut short by intimate partner violence. Gabby Petito was more than just a victim in a true crime story. She was a daughter, a sister, and a friend who had dreams and aspirations that extended far beyond her social media presence. She wanted to travel the world, build a successful blog, and inspire others to pursue their adventures. Her death serves as a reminder that domestic violence can affect anyone, regardless of age, background, or social media presentation. The warning signs that appeared in the Moab police encounter, the emotional manipulation, the victim blaming, the isolation, are present in abusive relationships across all demographics. If Gabby's story teaches us anything, it should be to look beyond surface appearances and to take seriously the signs of abuse when we encounter them. It should remind us to check on our friends and family members, especially those who may be in controlling relationships. The National Domestic Violence Hotline continues to provide support for those who need help, and resources are available for anyone who recognizes themselves or their loved ones in Gabby's story. Gabby's legacy lives on through the foundation established in her name, through the legislative changes inspired by her case, and through the countless individuals who have been encouraged to seek help because her story resonated with their own experiences. Her journey began with dreams of adventure and ended in tragedy, but her impact continues to save lives and provide hope for those who find themselves in dangerous relationships. Remember, if you're someone you know needs help, resources are available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline can be reached 24/7 and provides confidential support for those in need. This has been a Dark Trail Files investigation into the case that captured America's attention and broke our hearts. Thank you for joining me on this difficult but important journey through one of the most significant cases of our time. Subscribe to Dark Trail Files for more in-depth investigations into the cases that matter, the stories that need to be told, and the truths that demand to be uncovered. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember that behind every headline is a human story that deserves our respect and attention. The truth is out there, and we'll keep following the trail until we find it.